Well, hello, my silky friends. It's Sunday, and you know what that means. It's story time. If you are new to my channel, I'm Lily, and this is Silky Southern Tea. We talk about Southern mysteries, Southern ghost stories, vintage crimes. If it's weird, we're probably going to talk about it. Just to let you know, I thought I had a sinus infection. Apparently I had the Rona again for the second time this year. Yay me! I'm a little bit snotty, but feeling much better. And this week I am going to tell you a famous Alabama ghost story. I love this one, and it's been witnessed by so many people. It's got to be true, right? This one is called The Crying Spirit at the Well. Let's start with today's tea. And you know what? I have lost it. I don't know where it's at. I flipped my lid too. Okay. It is floral infusion. It is a dried tea in a tea ball. So yeah, I can't show it to you. But, today's hat. I don't think I ever put this one on right. All right, here we go. Again, we're going to go all the way back to the 1800s in Wilcox County, Alabama, in a little town called Furman. Now, in Furman, there was a doctor named Purefoy. Oh, I hate these names. Purefoy. Whatever. I'm probably butchering this name. Anyway, he and his family had been in the town for a very long time, established by his grandfather. He had a thriving practice, a wife and family. He had a great little life going on. Now, one Alabama summer came along that was very, very hot. It was hotter and sultry than most. And it was so bad that the creeks dried up. And so that meant a lot of the wells and things that water feeds under the ground also got very low or dried up. Unfortunately, that's what happened to Dr. Purefoy. And so, as the story goes, he told his servants, who we kidding? They were slaves. Just call it what it is. Jeez. He told his servants he didn't have time to dig a new well right then because there was a malaria outbreak. So he asked them to please go over to the creek that was a good little distance away with water buckets and bring them back to the house because, back in the day, that was the only way you got water. You had to have a well or drag it from the lake or creek. So day after day, his servants would be coming back with empty buckets after going all this way. Well, Dr. Purefoy was like, okay, what's up with the empty buckets? And they kept telling him, oh, Dr. Purefoy, there is a haint at that river. If you don't know what a haint is, in the South, that's like a haunt or a ghost, or sometimes it's reported in this case to be a witch. So there was some kind of haint or witch hanging out at the creek. And they said every time they'd have this, they'd have this terrible feeling and they'd draw their buckets. But when they got to the fence that they had to climb over, the buckets would just spill no matter what they did. So then they tried going under the fence, through whatever. They could not get those buckets of water to the house. So he'd send them back time after time, try again, we've got to have some water. Well, no matter what they did, this kept happening. And I kind of think that was probably the truth, because who is going to walk all the way to the creek but not get water? It's not like you're saving a trip. So anyway, they also reported that there was this big black cat that would sit there and mean mug them the whole time. It would just give them these looks. And they said this witch or haint or whatever was at this creek did not want them drawing water. You can imagine Dr. Purefoy was like, okay, whatever. I guess we're going to have to dig a well. So he started, and he gathered up his servants, and they picked out a place. They did some water witching. If you know what that is, they took the branch and, where they found the water, they started digging. So knowing that the soil was very, very sandy and unstable, Dr. Purefoy said, now look, when you start digging, I want you to put some wooden slats around the sides. You've got to reinforce this well so it doesn't collapse as you dig on down. So they start digging. They're making pretty good progress. They're putting up the retaining wall and all this kind of stuff. Well, as fate would have it, Dr. Purefoy gets called out and he has to leave on an emergency immediately. So he tells the men, he's like, look, you keep doing this exactly like we've been doing it with that wall and everything. Well, as the day wore on and the hot Alabama sun was just blistering everybody's backs, they decided it would be far easier and faster if they would just not put the retaining wall down anymore. And they also hoped that they would get done by the end of the day and at least hit water so they wouldn't have to go back to the creek. Well, come nighttime, it still wasn't done. So they were about 40 feet down in the ground, and they were calling it a day. They had one man down there digging, and they said, come on, we're just going to stop and call it a night. Well, just as they were packing up to get out, all of a sudden, that dirt starts caving in because they hadn't put the wall up. Well, they were horrified, and by this time, Dr. Purefoy comes back, and he's seeing all these men digging, and he's like, what is going on? And they were forced to tell him what they had done. So they can hear the man down in the bottom, they can hear like muffled cries and stuff, and they keep digging and digging, but now there's so much dirt, and of course there's no lights, there's no electricity, they can't see, and they've dug and dug, and after digging through the night, they realized that he probably has not survived the caving in, the weight of the dirt, and now the lack of oxygen for all these hours. So the doctor says, well, there is absolutely nothing we can do. We've tried, we've dug all night, we can't find him, and we know he hasn't survived. There's nothing else we can do but just fill up this hole now. And so, reluctantly, they did that. Well, in the days to come, they would pass by that spot and they would think they heard like muffled cries. And that was strange because now it had been so many days, weeks, months, whatever. There was no way that somebody was still alive down in there. Coincidentally, the grounds never actually became even there. There was always a circle and a depression, which would not be so odd in itself just to get the dirt level. They had dug away at it. But what was very odd is the grass would not grow in that circle. It was just all brown and, dirt. What grass did come up just died. So time passes, years pass, and people would hear at night, they'd be walking past the Purefoy place, and the well was right out there close to the house. They would hear somebody crying and just sobbing. So they would, kind of go and try to see what was going on. And some people have reported seeing a figure sitting on that patch of ground, crying and saying, help me, or please come and find me. Now, that's pretty unnerving for back then, but that has continued year after year after year. And some people still say you can hear a cry on some nights of that poor slave down there who got buried alive in the well in Wilcox County. Now, this was also documented by Catherine Wyndham in her book, 13 Alabama Ghosts and Jeffrey. If you haven't read that, it's got some spooky tales. They're kind of basic. They don't go into a whole lot of detail, but she's a very interesting woman. And you can probably find some stuff by Catherine Wyndham also on YouTube if you're interested. I hope you enjoyed this little story. It is short today because I'm out of air. So anyway, we'll be back next week with some haunting tales. The scarier the better. Also coming up next month, just to let you know, we're going to be doing some crime stories. We're going to call it Not Guilty November. So, if you are interested in crimes that are either unsolved or wrongly accused, then you need to just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'll be right here for you. I know a lot of you are from different places, so comment below. Do you have a local, state, country, county, whatever ghost story in your area? Tell me about it. I'd love to hear it. Also, I hope you have a great week. And it is tea time for me and maybe nap time. I will be back with you next week. Remember to stay silky.